writer's dream. Our show is a show that provides a forum for writers to talk about how they wrote their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. We have a wonderful Facebook page, which has most of the shows on it. We invite you to go on, watch the show, and make comments. We try to answer your questions. If you are interested, if you are a first-time writer, or even someone who is trying to publish their books, someone who is trying to market their books, we have lots of tips for you. We're also on YouTube. We're closing in on our second year of the show, so we have about 50 shows that you can see. We have all genre of books, and if you're interested in getting into this whole wonderful world of writing, publishing, and marketing, I suggest that you visit Facebook and YouTube, The Writer's Dream. Today's guest is Yona Zeldis McDonough. McDonough. That's a nice combination of Irish and
Jewish.
Irish and Jewish. 80s Irish Rose. And she is the author of A Wedding in Great Neck. And I am intrigued by this title because at first I thought, when I first met Yona in a library in Huntington, I thought, this is a wedding planner. This book must be a wedding planner. But it's not, it's a novel. Tell us about your book.
It is a novel. It takes place in a single day when the Silverstein family convenes for the wedding of the youngest daughter, Angelica. And it's told from several points of view, notably not Angelica's. So there are several generations. Her grandmother is there, her parents, who each have a point of view, they're divorced, her sister, and her niece. And she's more the object of the story rather than the subject, because everyone is there for her wedding and everyone is focused on her, but in fact, they all bring their own perspectives to this event and to the family dynamic. And so that's really what's being explored.
So it's interesting that you chose the name Angelica, because I think Angelica, angel, and she's not really, she's the focus. She's this lovely person in white. And I get this vision of the angel who's just completely removed from the family drama, so to speak.
Well, that's kind of true, and she gets the better name in the family. She's kind of the girl that has everything in that family, the one that they all envy and her father's favorite, and there's a lot of baggage there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let me read one of the reviews of your book. It's acclaimed author Yona Zeldis McDonough has written a smart, poignant, and entertaining exploration of family relationships in her new novel, A Wedding in Great Neck. In prose as sparkling as a champagne toast, that's lovely, McDonough writes the story of a family's celebration and the tensions that arise from the fairy tale wedding of their golden girl. With humor and grace, she examines the strong and often conflicting emotions families experience on wedding days. Would you give us an example of those conflicting emotions?
Well, I guess first I want to say is that, a wedding provides a great opportunity for a novelist because it just highlights all the tensions and issues in a family. The family is being rearranged that day, whether people acknowledge it or not. But the unit has to change and accommodate for this new person that is being incorporated into the family. They might like the person, they might not. But whatever it is, they're going to have to change and accommodate. So in this particular family, the older sister is jealous of the younger sister.
Yes.
The parents who are divorced have their own issues. The father is a former alcoholic who's trying to, bring his life back up, and his wife married up to Great Neck. He did not, when they were married, they were not in Great Neck, they were in East Meadow. And she always wanted to be in a place like Great Neck, and now she is. So he's coming back in a position, not the position he'd like to be in with his former wife. And then there's the grandmother who has her agenda for everybody in the family. She's got plans for everyone, and she kind of wants to see her family through. She has various ideas for them. And the niece, who's a troubled girl, and the nature of her trouble really kind of comes clear on this day. Like, her mother has suspected it for a while, but tried to push herself away, push the knowledge away from herself. And things happen in the course of the day. I don't want to give away too much,
No.
But things happen in the course of the day that make it very clear, like, they're going to have to address the problems of this daughter. So those are just some of the things that happen on the day.
No, it sounds like it would make a wonderful TV series.
I'd like to think so.
Because each story is probably a kind of a spin-off of the story in its own right, and we all experience family situations like this now. There is no, I don't think, anyway, that it's any such thing as a pure family where, you know, remember, father knows best.
One of my favorites.
Well, even they had conflicts, but certainly today we deal with issues that are so controversial and also so sometimes tragic. So where does the wedding, do you take this to the actual reception, the ceremony, the reception?
Yes, it all takes place. They don't get married at Leonard's, though
Good.
I gave a nod to Leonard's, but they get married at a fictional home in Great Neck, her stepfather's house, which is very big and very tasteless, and but very accommodating.
Elvis's home,
Something like that, but very accommodating for this event.
Well, that's interesting in itself. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that I've gone to weddings in other parts of the country. I've been to a wedding in Georgia, I've been to several in Illinois, a couple in Maryland. My son is actually getting married in 2 weeks in Maryland. And I find that New York is the only place where weddings are extravaganzas beyond, you know, sort of.
Really?
Yeah. My son's first wedding in Illinois was a backyard wedding. My second marriage was a backyard wedding. The first wedding was an extravaganza. But back when I got married, the extravaganzas were less extravagant than they are now. So I think that's an interesting phenomenon as well. What motivated you to write this book?
I don't begin with an idea. I begin with a voice. And I really feel like the voice is talking to me. I hear it very clearly. And when the writing is going at its best, I feel like I'm not making it up. I am simply transcribing it. That somebody is tapping me on the shoulder and saying, I want you to listen to this. This is important, you know, and your job is to get it down right, so that I feel that I'm more like a vessel than an agent of creation. And it's a wonderful feeling.
How does that happen?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Wow.
I couldn't tell you, but I just know that it's kind of what I live for as a writer. So the first voice that came to me in this story was Lincoln's, the father, who's, as I said, a former.
I thought it was Abe.
a former alcoholic and divorced, and two experiences I've never had. So I don't know where he came to me and why he did, but he did, and he started talking to me, and I knew that he was on his way to his daughter's wedding. And then once that happens, once I get that little spark, then I have to kind of, that's the inciting incident, if you will, and where the muse, taps you on the shoulder. But then you have to really step back and be more analytical about it. And I did like this idea of a wedding, because as I said, I thought that it really brought out a lot of tensions, and I wanted to confine it to a single day. I'd read a couple of novels that I very much admired, contemporary novels, including Ian McEwan's Saturday, and I do not compare myself to him. I don't feel fit to kiss the hem of his garments, but it was a very powerful book that took place in a day. And when you finished it, you felt like you'd read War and Peace. It had that epic scale, and I really wanted to do something along those lines. I don't know that I did. I did something different, but I like the idea of the day, that it really seemed to set forth like a very natural boundary. And how much drama could you pack into a day? So once I had that spark going, then I had to find a way, to sustain the fire. And I wanted the other voices of the family, to come in. And so I began to, listen for them and choose them. And
that's so
that
interesting.
was fun.
As I find in my own writing, I call it the zone. You are able to, if you're able to get rid of all the distractions of the day and you get into the zone, you are actually one with the character. And I think that's how you create the most convincing and sympathetic characters, is when you become one, because then they're really accurate and genuine feelings. So I think that's very interesting. But now you've written other books as well. Can you kind of give us an outline of what you have written?
Well, for adults, this is my fourth novel. I had a novel in 2002 called The Four Temperaments that took place in the ballet world, and then that was followed by In Dahlia's Wake. It's rather had a very sad premise. A couple lost their only daughter in a very freaky car accident, and it's about what happens to them after that. The third was kind of an urban fairy tale, Breaking the Bank, about a woman who goes, I was telling you about that earlier, about a woman who goes to the ATM and it keeps giving her money that it neither records nor
Where
debits.
is the ATM?
It's in Brooklyn, right like 2 blocks from my house. Everybody's always asking me that, where's that ATM? And this is the 4th. And I also write for children. I've been a full-time writer for, I'm trying to think, since 1987, and I was writing before then.
Did you have another career before?
I didn't have a career. I had like a series of professional mishaps, is what I can call them. I went to college, and I studied art history in college, and I liked that very, very much. And so I didn't really know what I was going to do afterwards. So I thought, okay, I'll go to graduate school in this. That'll be all right. I mean, I seem to be good at it, and everyone tells me I'm good at it, and I like it, so I'll do some more of it. So I went to Columbia for graduate school, and I really didn't like it. Everything I had loved about being an undergraduate was not present in my graduate school life.
Yeah, graduate school was different.
It's very professionally oriented,
Yes.
and in undergraduate, I describe my experience as being like a little African violet over whom my professors would hover and say, grow, grow, grow. And that graduate school is like a business.
Get on with it.
Yes, exactly. Like everyone is too busy, and everyone is like, involved in their own thing, and everyone had a briefcase, so I got a briefcase, didn't help. I keep my lunch in it in the crossword puzzle. Wasn't so good. But while I was there, I was allowed to take courses elsewhere in the university. So I took this creative writing course, and it was my, as Oprah would say, my aha moment. I thought, like, you could do this? You could do this for a life? Like, I couldn't, it seemed, just like such bliss to me. And I realized that I wanted to do just that, and I have to find a way to support myself while I did it.
Right, so did you do magazines or?
I did. Back in those days, it was a little easier to do magazine work than it is now. But so I left my graduate program after an MA, and I had, one unsatisfying job after another. Whenever I was left alone with a typewriter, I am dating myself, but that's fine. But it was always a good typewriter, like an IBM Selectric that I didn't have at home. I would inevitably do my own work, even though I knew it was wrong and I shouldn't do it. I was like incapable of not doing it. If I had the typewriter and the paper and like 10 minutes to myself, I was going to do it. And I did. And I didn't think about an MFA, which I know a lot of people do, because I'd already shelled out all this money for graduate school, and I was in debt for it, and I just didn't imagine how I could do more of that. I mean, I didn't see how I could take on more debt. So I took writing classes in the city. And yes, I tried to find freelance work wherever I could. Sometimes in the beginning that meant unpaid work, just to get clips. Yeah. And that gradually turned into paying work. And once you got some of that, you could get more of that, because then you'd have clips and you could show somebody. I think that landscape has changed a little bit with, or a lot with online, the whole explosion online. But it's still, there's some basic ways that it's still the same, which is that you need an opportunity to showcase your work, and there are still people, there's always people out there who need what they call content. There's always work for writers.
Yeah. Sure. So that's a story of so many artistic people, and my students, having been a teacher, will come to me and say, well, this is what I want to do, and the bottom line of it is, well, you need to find some way to support yourself while you're doing that and while you're pursuing that career. And I wish you the best of luck and hope you become successful. But most writers do something else first until they sell the movie rights, right?
Right, or even during. I mean, I have many writer friends who teach, for instance, which dovetails nicely.
Sure, yeah, it is a nice combination, because teaching just lends itself to that. How is your publishing process? I understand that you're traditionally published?
Yes, this book is from New American Library, which is an imprint of Penguin. I've had an agent to help me through that. I won't say it's impossible to do without an agent, but for this kind of publishing, I think it's very difficult to get someone to even read your manuscript unless there's an agent, on the phone saying, I'm going to send it to you next week, and then he'll be back on the phone or email and saying, so, have you read it? What do you think? You need that person, and as an author, you can't be that person for yourself. You just really can't.
Yeah, see, I've heard that as well. I'm self-published, so I don't have an agent, but I'm really thinking about it. And actually, I did ask the question to an agent, if you're self-published, do you take on self-published projects? And her answer was very discouraging. She said, well, you're probably looking for an agent because you put your book out there And I understand that you don't have the budget of the publisher to publicize it, but you're not getting it out to as many people as you would like. And for me as an agent to sell it to a publisher, that's their first question is going to be, well, they couldn't get it, in front of an audience before, then how do they expect me to do it, which I think is extremely unfair, because we, as self-published authors, often do not have the same platforms that you would have if you have a publisher. So that was very discouraging, but tell us about your agents. I say agents because...
Yes, there have been many. I like to say that I've been married to the same man for 20-something years, but I've had probably 6 or 7 agents. I've lost count. The first one was found for me by a very dear friend on the bus. He saw her reading a manuscript, and maybe she was doing some work on it, and he asked her, flat out, are you, an editor, an agent? Because he had a friend who was a writer, and we met, and we hit it off, and she thought she could sell my work, and she did sell a book for me, a nonfiction book, many years ago. But I left her, and I've gone on to many agents. By now, and I think this is the best way, although I don't know that this is helpful to somebody just breaking in, it's good to get an agent from someone you know. Mm-hmm. Though there is literary marketplace, and I have another tip, if you want a tip about agents.
Absolutely.
Is find a book you really admire. Mm-hmm. And look in these opening pages here, in the dedication.
Acknowledgements, right?
Yes, in the acknowledgements. And you will find, as in mine, well, I don't have my glasses now, but my agent is thanked in here. Uh-huh. And my peerless agent, Judith Ehrlich, Judith, I'm giving you a shout out, who truly broke the mold, and she does. Very often, almost always, I will say, an agent's name is in that acknowledgement, and if you can and now with the internet, it's so easy, you can find that agent,
sure. And
you can say, I noticed that you represent X book, and I thought you would be a good match for my book because, and those reasons can vary. Yeah. You can say, because I feel like my work is like this in this or that way, or I really love this book and it spoke to me deeply, and I felt like you'd be a person who would understand my work. Whatever it is that you feel the connection might be. But have it be real and have it be genuine.
Sure.
Choose a book that really means something to you that you can speak convincingly about.
Let me ask you, this I think is really, to me, a very important question. You'll go into one of the texts that will tell you how to write a query letter and how to write a pitch letter and all the rest of it. And they're very formulaic, and I find them extremely false. Not false, it's not plastic. They're not, to me, genuine. You use the word, be genuine. And so I rewrote my pitch letter, and basically I said exactly what you said. This is what my book has to offer. And, I see that you've published books like this.
Yes.
And I want to treat them like a grown-up.
Right.
I think the way they want you to write a query letter or a pitch letter sometimes is a little contrived. It's the best word I can think of. But I do a workshop called So You Want to Write a Story with another author, Karen Bonet, and she and I have a workshop for people who have an idea. They want to write a book. They want to do something with that idea, and we give them ideas about, writing courses, getting an agent, getting a publisher. Should you go self-publishing? Should you go traditional? And that's exactly the advice we give them: is to go into the bookstore and find a book in your genre, and then look at the acknowledgments. And so, one of these days, I'm going to do that.
It's a bit like being, your detective.
Yes.
Right? You have to look. There are clues out there, and you've just got to study them. If you see them, you can put them together and help yourself with that information.
One of the guests I had on the show, probably early on in the show, said that you could have an agent and you can have a wonderful project. And this was a man who was obviously able to sink a lot of money into his project. And his project had animation in it. I thought it was extremely clever. And he said, you can have contacts and everything else, he said, but you need to be anointed by someone. And I said, what do you mean anointed? And he said, you have to have that one person who comes and believes in you. And it sounds like what you wrote about your agent is this was the person who came to believe in you. Do you have people like that in your life who along the way believed in you and helped you along?
Well, of course. But I guess I would say I don't think it's one person. I think it's more like a village, like raising the child.
Okay.
That, you don't want to give your fate over to, yes, it's wonderful, like, Oprah picks your book for a book club and 800,000